The R15 is a perfect example of what lies at Yamaha's core, which is to put a big wide grin on the rider's face every time he gets on the motorcycle and heads out for a ride. That's no easy task, which is why it's incredible that they've actually managed to make the motorcycle even better with the R15 version 2.0. Which is why I hope that Honda have given everything they've got to this, the new CBR150R. It's been given the task of taking Yamaha's R15 down. Performance and precision. That's what these two motorcycles are all about. But it's always nice to know that you can look good even while going slow. The CBR's design is inspired by its elder sibling, the CBR150R. But actually, every panel is scaled down for the CBR150R's tighter proportions. But some bits, like the digital instrument cluster, are nearly the same. All in all, it's a very attractive motorcycle and it looks far meaner than any 150cc motorcycle has any right to. So it's really a crying shame that Honda has been a bit stingy by not offering a pass flash switch and an engine kill switch on this bike. Meanwhile, Yamaha's R15 is fully kitted out to battle the Honda. Its design draws heavily from the R1's aggressive language. The dual headlamps, the beefy fairing, the high-set tail lamp mark this out as a performance-oriented motorcycle even while standing still. The quality of paint, plastics and switches on the R15 are top quality too. Things are running really close right from the word go. I mean, build quality on both these motorcycles is great and they look superb. So it really comes down to personal preferences. Well, let's see if there are any differences out on the road. Let's see how they perform. To get the job done, both these motorcycles sport single-cylinder 150cc engines. These high-revving liquid-cooled motors use 4 valves for better breathing and come mated to 6-speed transmissions. But there are differences. The CBR uses a short-stroke design, but it boasts of a horsepower advantage. The R15 may have slightly less horsepower, but its peak power comes in 2000 RPM earlier, and its peak torque is 1.5 kilograms more than the CBR, and it's also developed earlier in the rev range. In terms of performance in a straight line, there's virtually no difference between the two up till the 60 km/h mark. But by the time they hit 100 km/h, the Honda has gained a second's advantage. Taller gearing and a rev-happy motor give the CBR an advantage even in terms of top speed, with about 135 km on tap in 6th gear. But when you look at the roll-on times, the R15 just leaves the CBR standing. In 3rd gear from 40 to 60 km/h, the R15 is quicker by 0.8 of a second. In 6th gear from 60 to 80, the CBR trails the R15 by over 4 seconds. So in terms of outright pace, the CBR is faster, but the R15's performance is more readily available. Apart from that, there's little to choose between these two. Refinement and smoothness, whether it's the engine or the gearbox, is top-notch on both the bikes. Now the 150cc motors in both these motorcycles represent the best of what Japanese engineering stands for. They're really very potent, but at the same time they're very different in terms of nature. The R15's motor offers you a wider power band, giving you better rideability. It doesn't really thrive in the top end so much. The CBR, in contrast, it doesn't feel all that responsive. It feels a bit sluggish lower down in the rev range, but pile on the revs and the motorcycle just feels alive. So in that sense, very different motorcycles, but at the same time, both are very, very potent. I think to pick a contest winner, we're going to have to head into our next round and see how they perform around corners. First, the hardware comparison. This is where the R15 has the edge. The Yamaha is armed with a 4 cm longer wheelbase, and that's thanks to an alloy swing arm. The CBR in comparison has a regular rectangular box section swing arm. Also, the Yamaha uses a linked monoshock at the rear. while the CBR's monoshock is mounted directly to the swing arm. Then there are the tires. Both bikes use MRS, but they are very different. The R15's rubber is softer, grippier, and the radial rear tire is not something to be dismissed offhand. But on the road, the fight is intense. At first, it's the CBR that earns brownie points. The seating position, although not as aggressive as the R15's, has more room to crouch. The CBR also turns into corners with a precision that seems surprising considering how light the steering is. But the fly in the ointment for the CBR are its tires, which although grippy, can't match the R15's shoes. It's only when it's compared to the CBR does the Yamaha feel a shade heavier when turning into corners. Its commitment though is fierce. The seating position is aggressive, with your body weight loading up the front wheel for extra feel and stability. The longer wheelbase, the Pro-Link rear suspension and sticky tires deliver the kind of composure and a sense of confidence that can only be described as unshakable. You can lean the R15 over without batting an eyelid. So even though the R15 has an advantage here, the CBR is not too far behind. You just can't make up stuff like this. I mean, at the end of the handling round, I thought we'd have a clear, decisive winner, but that's not the case here. After riding these two motorcycles, I have to say, both have their own style of cornering and both are really strong. I mean, the CBR has a light steering, turns in very quickly, feels very precise and just fake quick because of that. The R15 in comparison likes to be thrown into a corner, but once it turns in, it's just so sure-footed, it makes it really very quick. So I'm going to have to say that we're going to have to look at the practical side of things between these two sport bikes to really decide which one comes out on top now. When it comes to day-to-day riding, the CBR, despite its less aggressive seating position, will be quite a pain in your behind, as the suspension is set up really quite stiff. So even though its pillion seat is more accessible, it won't be the most comfortable. The R15's pillion will sit higher, but the Link monoshock offers the rider and the pillion a more comfortable and supple ride. And not that it should matter to anyone looking for a sport bike, but these two actually manage to return quite decent fuel efficiency figures. In the city, the Honda has a slight edge, but once you hit the highway, it's the Yamaha that's leading. Now, I was expecting the battle between these two to be really close, but not as fierce as this. I mean, the CBR has fought really hard, really strong to topple the R15. But has it managed? Not quite. I mean, the engine has delivered screaming performance, the handling is light, nimble and quick, but the R15 seems to have the measure of the CBR. It just seems like a better overall package. I mean, from smaller details like having pass flash switches to an engine kill switch to the bigger things like having a die-cast aluminum swing arm with extra wheelbase and a stickier rubber from MRF, which just gives it that much more composure, that much more grip around corners. And of course, you also get that little bit more comfort thanks to the linked monoshock at the rear. So this really seems like a stronger package, better equipped package. And of course, what sweetens the deal further is the fact that the R15 is cheaper than the CBR by a fair amount.